I remember going through when I first started all those videos of like advice for new YouTubers, et cetera, et cetera. And one of them was just be on camera. Before you even shoot a video, just sit on camera, talk to the camera, things like that to get comfortable with it. There's a term in acting or a phrase in acting that acting is reacting. I look at it as sort of extended improv. Yeah, it's a performance. You are performing, you are emoting, but you're performing as yourself and you don't know what's coming. So it's a sort of extended improv. And so that once I sort of switched my brain into that of like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. We're just improvising. We're just doing this the entire time. That made it a lot easier.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reactorverse Podcast, brought to you by Passion Fruit. I'm joined today by a relative newcomer to the space, but her accomplishments and energy have already made quite the impression, in my opinion. It is Jacqui from her channel, Movie Night with Jacqui. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. If you're watching this, you're a regular viewer, you notice my background is a little different today. I'm visiting family. It was actually my birthday the other day, so I'm here visiting my parents and
Happy
stuff.
birthday.
So, thank you so much. It was, it's been a bit of a whirlwind of a weekend to get out here, so it set this up.
Yeah, we've all been there.
First time we're recording, I was at my usual space, so bear with me.
We'll make it work.
Yeah. Like I said, though, you've been, around with the channel for a couple of years now. Just a few years from 2022, which honestly in a post-pandemic internet, that's a lifetime in terms of content creation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just really want to sort of hear your experience with this thus far. I'm excited to have you here today. I like to go back to sort of the beginning of things, just in terms of your experience beyond the channel. You have it right there in your corner, USC School of Cinematic Arts. Yeah, you're a film school student, and I want to ask, what is your sort of general background with film, growing up personally, but also your academic experience with it as well?
So I was just someone who always loved movies. I never really had a specific desire to be a director. I enjoy writing, but it wasn't something that I lived and breathed the way that you need to do that professionally. But I've always been someone who just loved watching movies. It was kind of the only thing that and acting were just the things that I always came back to time and time and time again. And when it came to what I was going to study, there wasn't really a decision to make for me. It was just always kind of what I was going to do. But I didn't know, like I said, I didn't have any clue within that what I wanted to do. I was just someone who went to film school because I loved movies. And my degree at USC was at the time called Critical Studies. I think they actually, like the semester after I left, renamed it to Cinema and Media Studies. But it's in the title. Critical Studies is quite literally learning how to look at movies critically. It was the sort of general major, because I think USC Film School has like half a dozen different film majors, everything from production, screenwriting, across the board. And the Crit Studies major was essentially the sort of build your own major. You can find a lot of flexibility within there. So I did take production classes. I did have to do my own short films. I did have to do all of that. But I spent my time basically just learning film, learning how to watch a movie and understand why was this camera angle used? How did they use the color? How was this filmed? That sort of thing. And that was incredible for me because I didn't know how much was out there. There are directors and writers, etc., but you don't think about the fact that there's a senior vice president of worldwide distribution somewhere. There's so many different jobs within film. And so I just kind of spent 4 years absorbing all of that and loving all of that. And then when I graduated, I had a degree in film with a minor in theater. Those are the two things I loved doing. I started acting, and then I started working basically every job in film I could get. I was a PA. I worked in a talent agency, at a TV studio for a producer. I did basically everything, which wound up being its own sort of secondary education. I had spent 4 years in school learning the technical, and then I spent several years after graduation learning the business and learning that side of it. My family used to call me Jacqui of all trades because I would...
Great.
Thank you. Because I basically did a little bit of everything. And the downside to that was I wasn't really going forward at anything. I was doing a little bit of everything and not a whole lot of one thing. And then the pandemic happened and everything just disappeared. And I kind of got into reactions during the pandemic. I was aware of them before. I think my first experience watching reactions was Game of Thrones Burlington Bar. Came across those pretty early on, and then
Sean,
yep. And then I think from there moved to Blind Wave, and then just kind of started experiencing, wow, this is a thing that people do, and wasn't really aware of it as a big thing until the pandemic. Started watching a ton of them and thought that would be a fun thing to try, but I struggled so much with it at first. I tried filming reactions the first time in 2020, and I literally watched one episode. I think I was watching Black Mirror or something, and my film school brain kicked in. I was like, I can't just watch this. I have to break this down. I have to do a whole thing. And I didn't think that I could do just a straight reaction. I didn't think that my brain could do that. And I struggled with it for a long time, and then wound up trying it with a friend. I did my first channel called The Shame List with a friend of mine. We were both interested in trying YouTube, and I thought maybe if I have a partner there and we sort of have this conversation dynamic, that might be a way to sort of get me out of my head and just do that. And it was. It was a great experience. We learned a lot from that. Had a lot of fun, but eventually we realized we weren't really friends anymore. We were business partners and spending too much time together, and it was getting really, really difficult to do. And I was really dedicated to it. He was doing it because I asked him. And so we wound up splitting off, and I started Movie Night. And it's been a roller coaster and a hell of a lot more work than you can grasp.
Right.
But it's been so much fun, and now we're here.
Yeah. That's usually how it goes. I think with those, particularly people who have those backgrounds, with film and television, or media literacy. It's a rarity in the space actually for someone to start a channel with a certain level of critical understanding. A lot of the reaction experience is like, oh, I'm learning about sort of film from the ground up, about just like everything under the sun of like to Jurassic Park, to all the classics and everything. And so I know like when you come into it, it does have this sort of like balance you have to sort of strike with it, because you want to be critical about the film in like a productive way that you learned how to. You also want to have the just sort of genuine experience. And you started The Shame List with Sam, your friend, and you mentioned how going through that channel, it became difficult to sort of, separate the friendship with the work. I know that's something that a lot of creators struggle with through podcasts, through reactions, through any sort of like, creative endeavor, or to start working together. It's difficult to sort of strike that balance so hey, like, we can still hang out outside of this, and we can still have fun. My friends, the normies, they're a channel of, 8 to 9 people or whatever. I know they go to group therapy to maintain that balance between them. So that way they don't run to that roadblock of like, oh, we're just business partners now. Yeah. It's a long-term investment to make sure that you can maintain that balance. But I do think that awareness of yourself and of your sort of friendship with Sam is admirable, because that's a really big, easy pitfall to fall into for a lot of people. I guess, what was that sort of transition like for you? I guess understanding the scheduling conflicts, sort of what's going into the channel, and then realizing you sort of want to break off and just sort of like keep this going as a solo run, because it's more, manageable that way, just to maintain your own personal schedule.
It was kind of a very slowly then all at once decision. I had been doing 90% of it. Again, this is something that I had wanted to do and brought Sam in on, and he loved the idea of trying out YouTube, but the reaction format was never something that he personally thought was going to be for him, and he enjoyed it. But I was doing 90% of everything. We were sitting together filming twice a week. I was doing all the editing, and we've been friends, 15 years now. And with all of the stress I was under with that, with my day job, with the pandemic, with everything else that was going on, I was having regular meltdowns. I would literally go into a corner, cry, fix my makeup, come back, and then film some more, because it was just exhausting. And I realized he was my friend. He was someone I needed as a support, and we couldn't have that dynamic if we were working together. He couldn't be someone that I could go to and sort of vent and look to for help and support as a friend when he was my business partner and was stressing, Jacqui, are you ready for filming? Jacqui, have you gotten this done? Jacqui, are you ready for this? Like, we just couldn't do both. And so that sort of came on gradually. And then one day it literally it was one of those things that just hit me over the head, where I was like, we can't do this anymore. We can't do this. This is putting too much tension on us. We're not friends anymore. We're not hanging out the way we used to. I miss my friend. And he felt the exact same way. And we both felt like we had learned kind of what we needed to, because we leaned on each other's supports to figure out the whole YouTube thing, and figured that, okay, we got where we need to. We'll split off. We'll try it. I was terrified when I started my channel myself. I think the first video I filmed solo was Die Hard. And I was like shaking when I sat down to do it by myself. So I was like, what if I'm not funny? What if I'm not entertaining? What if I can't do this by myself? What if this only works if I have the conversation dynamic? What if it's like it was 2 years ago where I just can't get out of my head and struggle with it? So, yeah, absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrified.
I can imagine. Yes. Yeah. The dynamic between, a channel partner and being solo is very different. I've talked to everyone under the sun of what type of dynamics go through, being on camera for that. Did you feel that your sort of theater background, and just, I guess, film criticism background helped in any way of getting comfortable on camera, being able to articulate yourself?
For sure. I've done a lot of like on-camera acting classes, things like that. And there are so many tiny little things that I don't really think about now that I know a lot of people, when they first start on camera, have to be aware of. I remember going through, when I first started, all those videos of like advice for new YouTubers, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And one of them was just be on camera. Before you even shoot a video, just sit on camera, talk to the camera, things like that, to get comfortable with it. And when I first started on camera years ago, I used to call them facial fidgets, where I was constantly blinking too much or kind of looking around or just moving too much. And on camera, every single little movement just looks way bigger. Right. And so over time, learned how to adjust that. And I noticed that when Sam and I were filming, that I was sitting completely still and very, very simple on camera, and he had a harder time with that. And so that definitely helped. That absolutely helped. But it was really strange learning to talk to a camera, because when you're acting, you're supposed to not look at it. You're supposed to pretend it's not there. So that was a little bit strange. But yeah, I think it definitely helped. And there's a term in acting, or a phrase in acting, that acting is reacting. And it's this idea of finding authenticity. And the thing about reacting is I look at it as sort of extended improv. It's a performance. It's a performance. You are performing, you are emoting, but you're performing as yourself, and you don't know what's coming. So it's a sort of extended improv. And so that once I sort of switched my brain into that, of like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. We're just improvising. We're just doing this the entire time. That made it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely like, it's sort of like having an improv partner that just doesn't stop. So you have to sort of be able to yes and your way through, them constantly going.
Exactly.
And did you have any, significant learning curves from the technical side of things, just in terms of lighting, recording, editing, stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. Worked out a few of those kinks on the Shameless, which I'm grateful for. I remember we did several test sessions of figuring out our setup, figuring out lighting, and Sam jokes that we had a session. I wasn't happy with it. I didn't like how it looked. I wasn't happy with the lighting. And we came back the next day, and I had spent like 6 hours online the night before. I'm like, okay, what do I have? How do I make my setup better? How do I do this? Tweaked it, and all of a sudden it looks so much better. And I'm that person that's just meticulous and obsessive. But started to figure it out on there, and then I don't know, I think it looks okay now. But it's just trial and error. And then things like the one thing I didn't anticipate was frame rate differences. I didn't even think about the fact that my screen recording might be a different frame rate than my camera. I never even considered to look to that. So when I first did like full length reactions, they were out of sync, and I couldn't figure out why. And so there were a lot of things like that, particularly in the reaction space, when you have to sync things like that, there's so many little things like that I just didn't even know I didn't know. Yeah.
It's a lot of trial and error for small obstacles like that you can hit if you don't know. Like you said, you don't know.
Yeah.
Once you sort of had the channel going, you started with Die Hard, like you said. Did you have any sort of initial strategy of how you wanted to approach the channel in terms of the content, or just like how you formatted yourself?
Not really. I knew I had my list of things that I wanted to watch. I'd been watching reactions for a long time, so I kind of knew which film, shows, franchises, etc. tend to get the views, help you build your channel, particularly when you're starting out. You really need to get that growth. And so I knew things like Firefly would be a big one. The Last of Us, I had no preparation for. I had no idea I was even going to do that. I had heard of it, but I wasn't super aware. And then I remember the first episode aired, and I just got a flood of comments asking, are you going to do The Last of Us? You have to do The Last of Us. You have to do The Last of Us. And I think that was like my third or fourth video. And I did the first 2 episodes together, and I think it's still my highest viewed video to this day. But that came out of left field. I was not prepared for that. My whole schedule got completely out of whack, and I was like, all right, we're doing this. Apparently we're doing this.
Right.
And you just kind of got to take it as it comes.
Yeah. Obviously the channel is called Movie Night with Jacqui. I think you mentioned in that video that you weren't anticipating doing TV reactions like up front, but so that sort of naturally evolved through the audience feedback.
Yep.
I guess, how do those formats differ for you in terms of just your general entertainment of it, but also the reaction format from TV to film, to like in those different types of storytelling?
With TV, I definitely find myself rewatching things a lot more, because when you're going episode to episode, especially if you're not able to binge them, I'm someone, again, I'm very, very obsessive. I'm very detail oriented. I don't like missing things. It drives me crazy when I miss things. And so, for instance, for The Last of Us, I would watch the previous week's episode again before I watched the next one. That one was great because I was also editing real time. So by the time the next episode came out, I had watched the previous one half a dozen times over the course of editing. But yeah, with TV, it's definitely a lot more memory intensive. I want to make sure that I'm remembering these callbacks, remembering things from previous episodes. Whereas a film, you can kind of sit, enjoy what's going on, pay attention as you're in the moment. And that is a lot of fun and it's great. But for TV, there's so much more within the universe that you kind of have to remember and be aware of. And the few times that I've missed things, it's such a pet peeve for me when people are like, you missed this thing. I'm like, no, how could I?
Right. Yeah. They'll let you know for sure when something's amiss in the reaction or something you missed.
Oh yeah.
Getting into The Last of Us, like you said, it's one of the highest rated videos on your channel. It was obviously just huge shit when it came out, and that's like season's coming out this month in a couple of weeks actually.
2 weeks.
So it's going to be a huge hit once again for everyone. Do you recall any point, whether it was with that show or anything earlier on or whatever, where you felt like, okay, I'm getting some traction with this. Like I feel like I have momentum. I feel comfortable to keep going with this and build something here.
I started feeling that actually with the Shame List. We figured out pretty quickly that we had something good there. I was nervous going into movie night just because of our dynamic on Shame List. I was definitely the more analytical one. Sam was the more entertaining one. Yeah. And so I was nervous going into movie night if I'd be able to do that on my own, if I'd be able to combine both of those and have enough to actually sustain a channel. And Die Hard was actually hugely telling. I was very, very fortunate that video took off. I think I hit my first 1,000 subscribers within like 48 hours of posting that. It was the right thing to do at the right time, but started just getting really, really positive feedback. And I was still nervous about the critical angle because I wasn't still 100% on how to incorporate that. There are still videos on my channel that I loathe because I struggled so much. I was like, how do I balance talking about film versus talking about this? My most hated video, and I actually have to force myself not to take it down every week, is Pulp Fiction. That was fairly early on, and I was so obsessive of I have to catch everything, I have to comment on everything, I have to analyze everything, I have to talk about everything, and it's a very complex film. Right. And so struggled with that. But when I sort of realized that angle was my strength, was starting to get comments of people saying, wow, you're noticing things I never would have noticed. I'd never thought about the cinematography here. And then in the course of The Last of Us, I actually got a message from the cinematographer of the show. He had watched a reaction and reached out to me and said, thank you. There are very few people that appreciate that side of it. I mean, they're all crying over Bill and Frank and loving this show because it's incredible and there's so many wonderful emotional reactions to it. But very few people, like you said, in the reaction space just have that technical knowledge to be able to do both and to be able to comment on that. And so that was sort of my first big flagpole moment of like, wow, okay, there's something here. Like something is really resonating here. If I can figure out the way to navigate that, then might have something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to sort of dissect everything on the fly is like, I think such value, I think, for a lot of the viewers, because they like to feel like they're learning from you, or they feel like they're sort of at least like vicariously, experiencing the analytical side of things with you. And it's, again, a balance between being able to have those analysis and also have just a genuine sort of, interaction with the film as it's trying to impart, emotion or, themes on you. And like being able to parse that out is difficult. And I watched the Pulp Fiction reaction and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes, like again, the attempt to try and interact with the film on a fundamental level that's just very much you is, I think, what makes sort of the reaction space really great, because everyone brings their own sort of, impact to the film, and like how they interact with it. And that's why I love finding new people like this. And obviously, when you got into more TV, more films going on, did you find it, a sort of scheduling, any sort of, preference in terms of like, managing a TV show season versus like trying to film a full movie reaction, what that worked best for you?
A little bit, yeah. I've definitely found I have to balance out. I learned the hard way doing Band of Brothers and Masters of the Air that I can only handle so much heavy at one time. Because I remember, I think I did Band of Brothers first, and I was editing that while I was watching Masters of the Air and trying to do that. And I literally got so depressed in the course of doing that. And I burned out. I burned out really, really badly from that, and learned, okay, I have to balance this out. If I'm doing something heavy, I have to do something light. I have to be able to keep that balance. Otherwise, I'll drive myself crazy and I will be sitting here. I was crying every single day, and it's just exhausting. But I've also learned that reacting itself is exhausting. You're performing constantly for potentially hours at a time. It's not like being on set for a film where you run your 2-minute scene and then you pause and then you come back and you run your 2-minute scene. It's closer to a stage performance. It's closer to theater, where you're just going, and emoting and feeling and talking and analyzing for a long period of time. So I learned very quickly I couldn't film for more than an hour period at a time. Even if I'm doing a movie, I have to pause, because the few times I didn't, the first half of the reaction for the movie was great. The second half, I was just dead and struggling. So yeah, definitely balancing heavy and light, and then making sure that I'm keeping myself energetic and taking breaks when I need to. And that makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. The emotional weight of, what goes into a reaction is something that a lot of people overlook. The just energy that goes into it in terms of like, yes, being 100%, locked in to the film, trying to analyze it, trying to be vocal about your feelings and thoughts in a way that's like, again, performative, but it's supposed to be natural in a way where, my friend Greg Abba says, you're zipping yourself to just be your true self and let it out in a way that might not be natural when you're sitting by yourself alone without a camera and stuff.
Yeah.
Over the last, for a couple of years with the channel, your output has been steady, but it's not bombastic. And I mean that in a very complimentary way, honestly.
Thank you.
The platform usually, tells people, when you start a channel, you gotta like hit the ground running. You gotta like blast it out, everything, every day, to get an audience. And the way you described, your own, balance with material, I think reflects in just like how you handle the channel, which is great because you still have to have a steady level of growth and interactions with that without having to seemingly break your back over it. I know a lot of work goes into it, but you're not, I think really trying to put yourself through the ringer, and just try to like make sure you're prioritizing yourself, which is like, I would advocate for anyone to do, really.
Yeah.
And that's the idea of balance. I think most creators wish they could have. Yeah, exactly. How do you approach that balance in terms of like, scheduling and like your personal time and any other work you might have outside the channel, and just trying to maintain all of that?
That's definitely evolved over time. I did not have that balance at all when we first started. And part of the reason I was having regular meltdowns was because I was at the time working my day job, which originally was just a side hustle. And then during the pandemic turned into my full-time, and it wasn't paying me full-time livable money. And so I was already working overtime with that just to keep myself afloat. And then I definitely fell into that sort of trap when we first started of, we have to do 3 videos a week. Like, we have to get these out. Like, we have to be churning content. And I was literally falling asleep at the dinner table. Like, it was so bad. There's a running joke. People who have been around since then would see me on Discord at 4 a.m. because I was still up editing and still going. And I burned myself out. I burned myself out really bad. And I've had a couple moments over the course of the channel where that's happened, where this time I'm convinced that I can do it. And I've had to learn that balance is important. I'm finally, thankfully, to the point where this is pretty much my job. I have a few little side hustle things that pop up, but this is kind of the first time in my life, really, since graduating college, really, that I've had one job, that I've technically only needed to have one job. And there's something very freeing about that, but it also is stressful in a different way because now I know, like, okay, if I'm not producing content, I'm not making money. I'm not doing that. This is what I have to be doing. And even if I don't feel like doing it, even if I'm exhausted, etc., I still got to do it. But I also am really grateful to have built up enough of an audience now that they understand. They've seen me through the ups and downs. They've seen me depressed. They've seen me burnt out. They've seen me happy. But they're very understanding now of, yeah, we don't want you to burn out. Audiences can actually be incredibly, incredibly kind because they want to be able to watch more, and they know that they can't do that if you're a puddle and a mess in the corner. So it's definitely important to find that balance. And it's hard when you're doing YouTube from home in particular, because I never leave my apartment. I sit here by myself talking to a camera in the corner of my room. I don't have coworkers. I don't have a separate space that I go to. And so that's been the biggest challenge, I would say, is finding a balance of actually getting out of my house and finding that social and that exercise and all of that when you literally spend 20 hours a day in the same room.
Exactly. Yeah. I could definitely fall into that trap. I did for a long time while I was working in the reaction space. I was also a full-time editor for a movie trivia game show I did several years ago. And yes, like it's easy to wake up and be like, I'm going to just hit the ground running today, get some work done. Suddenly it's 8 p.m. And then here, just like it's the whole day passed you by. And trying to force yourself to take a break is important. And likewise, I just spoke to another channel, Real Time, and they were saying how, when you get into this sort of work, it's difficult to also motivate yourself to be your own boss, to convince yourself, like, I need to do this today because no one's going to do it unless I motivate myself to get my own work done. And it's hard to march to the beat of your own drum in a way. I guess when you get into the zone of, trying to sit down, make content, but also not overwhelm yourself, do you have any sort of, mantras or like tactics to sort of get in the zone of like recording and making sure you're taking care of yourself in that headspace?
Trying to think of anything in particular. It's more just deciding to do it. And then, as far as just getting myself in the zone, I've built up so many habits that like doing my hair and makeup, getting ready, that process is almost Pavlovian at this point. Like that really, really helps me get into a mindset of, this is not my normal everyday look. I don't walk around every day with a full face of makeup on. And so doing that, it almost just triggers my brain like, okay, we're working. This is the headspace that we need to be in. That's really, really helpful. And building up a group of friends and consistent scheduled time. I have to know I have a standing phone call with a friend every single Tuesday afternoon. I have friends that I meet to go out on certain days of the week, over the weekend, etc. Having those scheduled moments, I have to have those. If I don't have them scheduled, if I don't know that they're coming, if I don't know that that's there, that's when I struggle. I have to have that structure and kind of force myself to do that by having it scheduled. So that I find makes a huge, huge difference. And then as far as motivating myself to be my own boss, it wasn't until recently that I actually started working with an editor. I'd been doing everything myself up to that point, which is part of the reason I have not had a massive, very high output was because I was doing it all myself. I didn't realize how many people were using editors. And even then, you don't realize what an insane obsessive perfectionist you are until you start working with someone else. And the first time I ever watched an edit of one of my videos that I didn't do, I almost had a panic attack. I was freaking out. I'm like, I don't know how to handle this. This is so strange. But that has been really helpful because it's like, okay, this has to get to my editor by this date. And so I have to have this done by then, no matter what. I have to have this done. And so having those external deadlines, those accountability partners, those scheduled times with friends, that makes a huge difference when there's nothing else structured.
Exactly. Yeah. The accountability, I think, is a huge part of it. And like making feeling motivated to be at top of your game for the sake of other people who are part of the team trying to help you. Having editors is, fantastic as well, because I know the stress of what goes into doing the reaction, the editing it, living through that whole experience again through the edit and stuff like that.
I have cried during edits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Hey guys, Eric from Passion Fruit. Just wanted to thank you for tuning into this episode of Reactorverse. To everyone who's commented on our videos, shared our work, or otherwise supported the channel, we see you, we appreciate you, and we've got a lot of exciting things coming for the creator community at Passion Fruit. If you haven't already, the usual stuff on YouTube always helps us. Hitting that like button and subscribing with the bell so you'll be notified when new videos come out. We also have a bi-weekly Passion Fruit newsletter that focuses on the creator industry, which you can sign up for through the link in the video description and the pinned comment. Twice a week, you'll get our best stories, as well as exclusive interviews, expert reviews, and the latest resource guides to help you navigate every stage of the creator journey. We've even got a weekend newsletter on the way, with a curated creator spotlight that focuses on the best online content from the people who make it, you. Thanks again for supporting Passion Fruit and Reactorverse and helping make your content your business, and giving love to the people who make the web.
Over the last, just several months, you've gone through personal obstacles, you've had family priorities, health issues, the wildfires. I also live in LA, so I was in the middle of that as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad that, you were able to make it through that. You're still here today working on the channel. But I always advocate for anyone that, in any sort of crisis, always prioritize your health first, your family first, your life first, and then get to the channel when you can. And that's easier, like you said, when you have an audience that has luckily built up and you respect your time and your ability to step away when you need to. I guess, how do you sort of approach those moments, in certain crises when you feel like I need to take a break? Obviously the channel needs to be maintained, but you need to sort of have that separation of you can't stress yourself out over the needs of the channel while you're trying to focus on the needs of your life.
That's something I'm still trying to learn, honestly. I'm genuinely still trying to figure that out. I try to be as communicative as I can because, again, it's easy to forget that audiences are people. From my side, they're numbers and words on a screen. I've met a handful of people in person. I've been lucky to be able to speak on panels and go to conventions and things like that. And so I have a little bit more of these are people. But at the same time, again, my days are spent behind a desk. And so it's easy to forget these are people that understand life and they have these things happen too. And so I find, if I'm honest, I had to say the timing of the tragedy happening last year was absolutely the worst. I was literally about to do Serenity. I had live streams. I had literally things scheduled, and I had to explain. I knew if I didn't, people would be confused, people would be frustrated, but the honesty of that, I was so blown away by the response I got to that. I could not believe it. I had anticipated just posting a quick video being like, hey guys, tragedy happened, have to deal with this. I don't know when I'll be back. Heads up. I did not anticipate just the flood of support that came in. And that was incredibly moving. That was so, I cried over that. I remember being a little bit drunk and in my feels about the whole thing. And I just sat there. I'm like, there are strangers around the world that are being so nice. And it was incredible. But just reminding myself, these are people that go through struggles too. And being open and honest and saying, hey guys, I'm so burned out. I'm so exhausted. I'm doing the third series of Band of Brothers right now, The Pacific. And I've had to be open. I'm like, I can't do this every week. I'm telling you guys right now, I can't do this every week. But being open and honest about that, people are generally very understanding as long as they know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. That transparency, I think, is important for a lot of creators, just to build that rapport and help the audience understand, you're a person too that has obstacles like them, and sometimes you need a break from things. But it's, over the last couple of years alongside that, you have had your accomplishments along with, speaking on panels. I believe, it's right there behind you. You spoke at Comic-Con and WonderCon. How did those events come to be? I'm curious how you got involved with those panels and what were those, experiences like?
Out of the blue, actually. The WonderCon one came first. The first time was last year, and that was completely out of the blue. I did not anticipate that, and I was bouncing off the walls when it happened because I had actually set a goal for myself that I didn't want to go to Comic-Con until I went as a professional. Having worked in that space for so long, that was just something that I set for myself. I always figured I'd be someone's assistant or something, but it was really important to me to be there as a professional, and I didn't know what that would look like, but I did always want to speak on a panel. I knew that was something that was a goal for whatever it was, and I got this message out of the blue from this guy who had run this panel several times. It was talking about independent film journalism and the growth of the internet and how we've expanded from typical, Variety and The Hollywood Reporter and Roger Ebert, Siskel and Ebert reviews into people having their own platforms. And because I had this critical angle to reactions, he reached out to me and said, hey, would you want to be a part of this panel? This is what we're talking about. I think you would be a really interesting addition to this. And I just was bouncing off the walls. I was screaming. I couldn't believe that had happened. And we did the WonderCon panel first. He's like, so we're going to do San Diego. Do you want to come to San Diego? And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. Free pass to San Diego Comic-Con as a professional. Yeah, absolutely. And we actually just this past weekend did the same WonderCon panel again, which
awesome. Yeah.
has been the most incredible experience. And SDCC has been probably a highlight of my career. It was such a unique experience, and so much came out of it that I couldn't have anticipated.
Right.
But it was just amazing, and I'm grateful to be able to check that off my bucket list.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's actually the 1 year I haven't gone to WonderCon in like a decade. It was this past weekend. Yeah, because I was traveling to come out for my birthday this year instead.
Gotcha.
So hopefully next year.
That's fair.
We're actually that's about to jinx or anything. We're hoping to put on a panel together for VidCon and Comic-Con this year. So
be awesome.
We'll see. We'll
Good
keep
luck.
it in mind for sure.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, but from that, you also had the reaction with Harry Belden for your Shaun of the Dead reaction, who was the new voice of Morty from Rick and Morty. And again, getting back into a little bit of the group dynamic, the just side dynamic, having someone there with you. I guess, how did that come about? Getting him on the channel, also, like, what was that like? Getting to react with someone, once again, side by side.
It was amazing, strange, surreal. That was a complete sort of, I don't want to say accident that happened, but I talked about that in a little bit in the intro of that video because it was so random. I was very aware that anyone clicking on this is going to be like, why? Sure, but why? We met at SDCC. It was literally the night before I was supposed to go down. I hadn't even thought about this, but I wound up meeting him through Ian Cardoni, who's the new voice of Rick. I had done a play with Ian like 6 or 7 years ago and knew that he had been cast as Rick, had sent him a congratulations. That was really exciting. Didn't even think about the fact that he might be at Comic-Con until the night before. And I saw posts on Instagram of some friends that were there, and they have painted on the buildings all the different animated shows, all these different things. And I saw a friend posting from SDCC, and I was like, hang on, I wonder if Ian's going to be there. And literally put it together the night before and wound up going down the next day and meeting up with him. And we happened to meet the entire Rick and Morty cast and crew there. But the first thing we did was go to the Shaun of the Dead pop-up. I had never seen it. I had planned on watching it regardless, but we were walking through and then had gone to get food afterward, and course of conversation discovered that Harry and I were the only two that had never seen it. And we were almost kicked out of the table because everybody else adored that show. But I had explained why I was there. I was there as a professional YouTuber, and this is what I did. And he said he'd never seen it. And so I literally just at the table, I was like, hey, do you want to come on YouTube and watch it with me? Didn't think he'd say yes, but just kind of threw it out there. He's like, yeah, sure, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it. I was like, all right, let's do it. And so I was like, I need to get this done before he changes his mind. And wound up connecting on Instagram, and we scheduled it. And he is such a great sport. He is so much fun and so kind, and was just completely open to it. It took him a little while to sort of get into it. It's very, very strange for most people to actively talk during a movie. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And so it definitely took him a minute to sort of get into the like, oh, I'm supposed to say my thoughts out loud. Because I would say something is like, oh yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, yeah, say that out loud. Say that out loud.
Yeah.
That's how this works. And so it's funny to watch sort of the full length version of that video, because you can see him sort of like trying to get into the format of it. But I was really grateful that I had done the channel with Sam before that, because I learned how to have another person. It had been a while since I did that, but getting back into the swing of a conversation dynamic and a reaction and all that was really helpful when having him on, because it wasn't my first time ever having a chat with another person. So I was able to sort of be the guiding hand and help with that. And he's coming back, actually. We haven't we haven't been able to schedule it yet. They've got the new season. He's been traveling and I think he just got married recently. But he's had a lot on his plate. But we are trying to schedule because he wants to come back and do the other two for the Cornetto trilogy. So
that'd be awesome.
As soon as we can. That's coming when we can. It's a matter of scheduling. But yeah, that was the most unbelievable, surreal thing. I was already excited to be able to go to Comic-Con, but to be able to hang out with him and Ian and I was about to say Summer is the name of her character, Spencer Grammer, and the rest of the Rick and Morty crew. I could not have asked for a better first SCCC. Could not have anticipated anything better.
Of course. Yeah, congratulations on all that, the experience and the panel and everything.
Thank you.
And, you mentioned it was sort of like a goal in a way where you wanted to go to SCCC as a professional, be invited to as, a guest to speak or to be part of the event itself in some way. Do you have any other sort of, goals or aspirations with the channel you think you might be aiming for at some point in the future, even if it's like, precise or like any sort of vague, sort of like goal?
Yes and no. I mean, like anybody, I want to hit 100K. That's the big goal. You want the plaque, you want the play button. That's sort of that badge of honor. And I mean, my biggest goal when I started was I wanted to be able to do this full time. That was the dream. When I first started, I was hoping, I figured at worst, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place here.
Sure. No fun.
I will fully acknowledge I had a very, very unrealistic, insane, irrational belief that this was going to work. I didn't know why, but when I first started, I was like, this is going to work. Yeah. And I feel like anyone who pursues any sort of job in the arts, whether you're a writer, director, actor, singer, musician, whatever it is, you kind of have to have that borderline irrational belief that you're just going to succeed, because otherwise you can't. There's just no way you can pursue something like that. And so when I started this, that was where I was like, this is going to work. Yeah, this is definitely going to work. And my family has staged 1 or 2 interventions on days that I've had meltdowns of like, are you sure? Are you sure this is what you mean? Like, yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I promise. And I had hoped that sort of worst case scenario, it would be a great day job. It would be something that I loved doing, that I could do full time, that I could make money at, and then would allow me the sort of stability to pursue anything else that I wanted to do and jump off from there. And maybe having an audience might help. You never know. But I didn't really anticipate the actual professional connections that I'd start making out of this.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that SDCC was eye-opening for. That was such a turning point for me, was recognizing, oh, I'm a professional now. I'm no longer just the PA and the grunt that nobody cares about. I'm being invited to things, and I can ask someone like Harry Belden to come on my channel, and I have enough of a presence and enough credibility now that that's something that can actually happen. Right. And so my mentality has sort of shifted now of like, okay, well, what can I do with that? Like, I absolutely love the channel and I will do this for as long as I possibly can. But now understanding that there are sort of more professional film doors that might be open, I'm just curious to see what those possibilities are and see where that goes. So that's a sort of open-ended, vague goal, but it's more of just an interesting, all right, let's see what can happen.
Yeah. It's interesting once you have traction with a channel like this. You start to understand that it's a weird mix again of like, the act itself is improv and criticism, but the sort of larger business aspects of it is, branding, self-brand, and small business. It's, mixing those two and just understanding your own self-worth with like what you can achieve for yourself with your own sort of, input and branding and stuff like that. And it's good to see how far you've come with this thus far. Again, balancing out everything that you've been managed to accomplish with the life experiences, but also the channel experiences as well. Finding that blend has been very impressive, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Of course. As you've, gone with the channel, we've talked about, facing several obstacles, but what would you say is the most consistent obstacle you've faced with the channel over the last couple of years?
Consistency. Just keeping consistency. And that's changing a little bit now, bringing an editor on board, but the burnout is real. I mean, I had a friend ask me a while back, how do you not develop a massive ego when you're looking at yourself all day? And I said, because I'm looking at myself all day.
Right.
Because I have to listen to my voice all day and look at my face. And I'm now aware of weird things about my face and my voice. And you burn out on listening to yourself. And so I struggled when I was editing all my videos because, one, I had to hear myself talk in the reaction. And then I had to sit for hours on end and listen to myself talk more and edit my own face and go through that. And I struggled to get through the edits. And so I had a really hard time sometimes just sitting down to work. I would get anxiety just sitting down to edit. I don't think I can do this. I don't know if I can go through this. And so keeping the consistency of finding the balance of how to manage that has been the biggest challenge. And the day I brought an editor on board, it's been a huge transition of figuring out how we work together and how to balance our styles and make sure that we're doing something that fits for the channel. But not having the pressure of sitting down to start that makes a huge difference. And so it's just finding that consistency, finding a way that you can balance all the craziness of it. Because like you said, it's a small business. When you're running your own channel, you're a writer, director, actor, editor, producer, promotion, publicist, like you're doing everything. And so being able to keep doing that consistently without dropping balls is the hardest thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's also one of those things where, like you said, being able to let go in a way, being able to understand that.
Yeah, control freak over here. It's hard. People will only be able to reach your vision and passion to like a certain percentage, not 100%, just trying to manage those expectations of yourself and what you can do and impart upon them. It's difficult. I can understand. Yeah, managing perfectionism, that's the other challenge.
Yeah. I think that might tie into our next question, which is how do you feel you've personally grown over the years with the channel?
Learned a lot about myself. That's for sure. I think in the course of being your own boss and having to be self-motivated, it's a very different experience than having a job, having superiors, having deadlines, having things like that, learning how you actually function, how you are motivated, what helps you, how to take care of yourself in different ways. That's been hugely informative. But also learning how to take care of myself. I am, believe it or not, actually quite a bit of an introvert. And I didn't anticipate what a toll it would take on me being so isolated. And I learned I have to have that social time, that we are humans, we're social creatures. And I learned the hard way that I had to find that social balance. So that was really helpful. I also learned what I'm capable of. I think you often don't know until you take on something massive and until it's all on you, what you can actually handle and what you're capable of doing. And I was reminded what a perfectionist I am. Again, learn more about that, but learn what I'm capable of and learn what's possible out there. I think when you spend so long, particularly working in industries like entertainment, being the sort of punching bag, being the grunt, being the intern, being the PA, being the person that doesn't matter, being nobody, being set dressing, when you actually start to succeed for yourself and you actually start to build something for yourself, it can be a huge confidence boost. And I learned that I have more to offer the world than just getting coffee.
Right.
And there's something very empowering about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Knowing your self-worth is a very great goal to have.
It's important. Mental health. It's good for you. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And the final question for our main part of the show here is, over the time of the channel, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect you found with it?
Community. I mean, finding so many other people that love these movies just as much as I do and enjoy nerding out just as much as I do. That's one thing I do miss about being in school, is literally being surrounded by other people studying the same thing and just excited about it as you are. And I think that kind of went away with work, because when people are working, they're excited, but it's a slightly different mentality. It's more of a grind than a learning environment. And then the pandemic, that went away, and I just lost a lot of connection. I remember the first time after the pandemic getting to hang out with friends from film school and being like, oh my God, I feel like I was going through withdrawal of not having people to talk to about this. So it's been incredibly rewarding to meet other people and to get really, really positive feedback. I think hearing people say things like, I was having a really bad day and I watched your video and it made me feel better, or I have seen this series, things like Band of Brothers. I've watched it every year for so many years and I never noticed these things, and I appreciate it even more because of you now. That is probably one of the biggest, is just being able to share film appreciation, being able to share not just with people that also love movies, but being able to give people a whole new level of appreciation. I can't think of a better honor than helping people love movies even more.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Truly, yeah, I agree. Like I said, it's a rarity when someone can come in with some sort of expertise or just like a media background for this space. And I think what you do for people who want to learn more about it is really rewarding and really impactful for the overall, ecosystem of the reaction space. So
you're
doing a great job. Yeah. We do have our final questionnaire, which is just 10 questions sort of down the line we give to everyone. The first question being, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Of all time, oh my goodness. How do I even choose one? That is the most evil, insidious question that you could ever possibly ask, asking me to choose one show. The first one that comes to mind, I don't even know if this is my favorite, but this is one of my comfort shows that I come back to constantly. It was an ABC soap opera called Revenge with Emily Van Camp.
Yeah.
I love that show so much. I can't even call it a guilty pleasure. It's just one that it's a comfort show for me. I come back to it over and over and over again. I've seen it so many times. But my, I guess, film student answer would be Orphan Black.
Oh, that's a great one. I love Orphan Black so much. Yeah, that's such an underrated show.
Yeah. Oh my God, Ted Lasso. How did I even not say Ted Lasso? I feel like that's such a given. Like that's such an absolute given. But this is what I mean. You can't ask me to pick one. That's just not fair.
We'll take three. That's fine.
That's rude.
We'll take all three.
Fair enough.
Hopefully this is maybe a little easier. What is your favorite film of all time?
That's even worse.
Oh, no.
I'm going to give you 10. My list varies, and it kind of depends on what time of year, what day you ask me, but my sort of top ones that I tend to come back to, my film school answer is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I adore that movie. Another one is Inglourious Bastards. As someone who is not really into the violence, I didn't think I would enjoy Quentin Tarantino all that much. Inglourious Bastards changed my life. I adore that movie. And then to change tacks a little bit, How to Train Your Dragon. The original is just, I overload on cuteness every time I see it. And it's lovely. And I could go on for days, but those are sort of the first three that pop to mind.
All great ones, yeah. And we have the remake coming out, so hopefully that'll be good.
We'll see.
Yeah, so we'll see.
It's shot for shot from what I can see. I'm like, all right, cool.
There's a lot of questions there. A lot of questions for sure.
Yep.
Next question is, what stresses you out?
Oh, so many things. Everything. Literally everything. I'm a worrywart. I'm just a perpetual ball of anxiety. I get social anxiety. I actually get a lot of social anxiety in social dynamics of, did I say the right thing? Did I say the wrong thing? I'm that person that will stress for weeks about that one weird comment that I made or weird social situations. So social situations give me anxiety.
Well, I definitely understand that. What helps you relax?
Heat. Any sort of heat, like hot tea, cozy in bed, hot bath, hot shower, that sort of thing. Like anything cozy is really, really helpful for me. Yeah,
that sounds great. Yeah, just warming up. The Toasty Cinnamon Bun, like the Homer Simpson.
Calm your nervous system.
Yeah.
And hugs. Hugs are good too.
That's good. What is a hobby or passion outside of TV and film that you have?
Karaoke.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. I am an avid, diehard karaoke whore. Yeah. I love it. I have a group chat called Karaoke Crew.
That's awesome.
And we have found probably every space in LA that it's physically possible to do karaoke.
I applaud you for that one. Karaoke gives me anxiety. It gives me the jitters to think about.
It's the performer in me. It's just it's the jazz. But also everyone's drunk, so you don't have to worry about
it's fair. Yeah.
About it. Yeah.
What fictional character do you relate to or just care deeply about?
As far as relate to, I don't want to say not so much anymore, but I actually wrote my college admissions essay about Lisbeth Salander from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because that was right around sort of the peak of that. And I remember reading that book. I'd seen the Swedish films, but David Fincher's adaptation of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it breaks my heart they weren't able to continue, because that is, in my opinion, one of the greatest adaptations of all time. But that character, just her strength and her perseverance and her individuality was just incredible to me. I literally wrote my college admissions essay about her.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great one.
Thank you. I have the books on the shelf over there somewhere.
What is your guilty pleasure show or film? I know you mentioned Revenge, but there's that or anything else? Yeah.
I mean, that whole genre, I call them like glamour shows. They're the very like fancy dressing soap operas, the Revenge, Gossip Girl, Scandal, I call them power dressing dramas, like those power dressing soaps, like any soap drama that has a female character that dresses fabulously. Like that's my kryptonite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's great.
Thank you.
What show or film gave you your favorite reaction experience with the channel?
Ooh. I mean, I kind of have to say The Last of Us, just because it was very early on this channel. I doubled my growth on it, but it was one of the best things I'd ever gotten to react to, getting to actually chat with the cinematographer, getting a whole new audience and perspective of it, and the boost of confidence. That, I think, overall has been kind of the best experience. The very close second would be Firefly. Because there is no audience like the Firefly audience. The brown coats are in a league of their own.
Yeah.
And they are so kind and welcoming and charming and wonderful. And that was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I love seeing people react to Firefly and be able to get to Serenity, because that's such a great conclusion to the series and way to tie it out.
Yep.
What show or film do you wish you could erase from your memory and react to again for the first time on camera?
Oh, so many. Orphan Black would definitely be one. I remember that I watched the pilot actually for a class in school and went home and binged the entire first season that night because of how obsessed I was with it.
Yeah.
So that would be one that I wish I could experience for the first time again, probably more than anything else, just because I loved it so much. Yeah. I'm sure there are a million, but that's the first that comes to mind.
That's a great one. I wish more people could react to it, honestly. It's such an underrated show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time.
I always tell people, either you love it or you haven't seen it. It's the same with Ted Lasso.
Exactly.
Either you love it or you haven't seen it.
Yeah. And our final question here, what advice would you give to your past self if you can go back in time when you first started the channel?
Take a breath. Take a beat. You don't have to kill yourself over this, and it's all going to be okay. I don't want to say it's not worth crying over, because I think anything worth the effort, you're going to have the highs and the lows. So I think you have to take both in hand, but balance would be the other thing. Just make sure you're balancing balancing those highs and lows.
Right. Fantastic advice, I think, for anyone who might
just
get into
life
this
advice.
Space. Yeah, good life advice. Yeah.
Make sure you're
Jacqui,
keeping the balance.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate all the insight you're able to provide for us with your experience. Where can we find you on YouTube, social media, anywhere otherwise?
Yeah, so all my links are on YouTube, but the channel is Movie Night with Jacqui. My Instagram is Jacqui Mia Ross. I have Patreon. I think I technically have a TikTok. I think I have both a personal, and I think I started a Movie Night TikTok when shorts became a thing and we all attempted to do shorts.
Right. Yeah.
I've noticed on so many other channels, there are like half a dozen shorts and then never again. We all kind of did the same thing where we attempted it and then we're just like, this isn't working.
Right.
But yeah, I think YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon are sort of the best ways to find me. Those are the ones.
Great. Again, thank you so much for being here. It's a blast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. You'll find me at Nerd Chronic across social media. You'll find us at Passion Fruit for Us across social media as well. Links to our Patreon and Discord down below. We'll catch everyone on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.